family patterns, and today we want to look at technology. We started on that last week, and today we're going to kind of finish that up. Today we're primarily going to be looking at social media and where does that intersect with our faith. What, if anything, does God have to say about it, and how should we then respond? I wanted to give you all one word of encouragement today. Just encourage you to do something for me. We've been getting some really good crowds lately, and it's been awesome. It's been the same way in the early service, and so we're thrilled that so many of you are deciding to come here to Grace. I want to ask those of you who have been coming here for a while and who are regulars, if you would do a favor for me. I'm going to ask y'all if you would, especially if you get here early, so that automatically excludes a lot of you, right? But if you get here early, I would love it if you would choose to sit closer to the front. And here's why. I just want you to catch the vision of why. We have a lot of guests who come here. We get guest cards filled out every week. And if I'm a guest and I'm coming to a place for the first time, I'm going to feel awkward if I have to walk all the way up to the front, you know. And guests usually get here, a little bit late because they're unsure and they're maybe insecure about coming. They get here a little late. All the back seats are filled up. The only place to come is up to the front. It's dark in the back. There's spotlights in the front. You can see where I'm going with this. It's awkward. And so it's so awkward that you might not want to come back if you're a guest. So I would encourage y'all, take a chance, come on up here, sit close to the front. You can sit close to the teacher and not get in trouble, okay? So move up front and make some room for our guests. I guess the way I would say it is, if somebody comes over to your house and they're visiting their company, you want to leave them the best seat in the house, right? And it's the same way at church. So I would just ask you, if you get here early in particular, move forward, leave the best seats in the house for the people who are the newest. All right, let's jump into this whole technology deal. Last week we talked about how we had a theological description or definition of technology, and we landed on this. Technology is the image of God manifesting itself as an extension or amplification of some part of ourselves. We are created in the image of God. Part of what that means is that we go on to create as well. And that means that part of the image of God in us is that we become creative people. And we create things that are an extension or an amplification of who we are. We talked about the car. You know, the car is an extension or an amplification of your legs. It does what your legs do, it just does it faster, more efficiently, more effectively. These glasses are a great piece of technology. They do what my eyes do. They just extend it or amplify my natural ability. And so that's what technology is. Today we're going to talk about technology as it pertains to social media. You guys know what social media is, but in effect, what it really is it's an amplification or an extension of your personality. And so you're able to extend or amplify who you are onto a forum with people you wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to associate with. So you have friends like I do. I have, my brother is in Monument, Colorado. My mom is in Bloomington, Illinois. My sister is in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And so because of the miracle of social media, I'm able to extend my personality, my family, my voice, my thoughts. I'm able to extend it to them in those places because of the miracle of social media. Now, what that means, too, is that other people get to extend themselves to you by the miracle of social media. And so what it essentially means is that you have a voice that is extended and other people have a voice that is extended to you. And that can be a good thing and that can be a bad thing. Let's talk a little bit about Twitter. Twitter keeps track of who has the most followers. And do you want to guess who has the most followers on Twitter? Donald Trump, I heard. A Kardashian, that's a good guess. The person who, this surprised me, the person who has the most followers on Twitter is Katy Perry. She has 109 million followers on Twitter. Yeah, Katy Perry, she's got quite a voice. You're going to hear her roar. You're welcome. Justin Bieber is like second or third now. They call his followers believers. Lord help us. And then Donald Trump, somebody mentioned him. President Trump has a bunch of followers on Twitter. A lot of people call him the Twitter in chief. Guess where he falls? He's number 13 on Twitter followers. Actually, President Obama has more followers than President Trump. So kind of interesting. All right, so I guess the reason I bring this up is like when you have an extension of your personality, who you are, and those people have an extension of who they are, you have people who are in your life at that point, in your children's lives at that point, and you're able to kind of follow along and get a glimpse into who those people are, and that can be a really good thing. It can be a really bad thing. It just depends so often on how you handle it. So I want to give you some principles today, 3 principles on handling technology, and in particular, social media. And then I want to give you some more practical advice on what to do with that. And so the first principle is this: technology gives and takes away. Technology gives and takes away. So you always have to ask yourself the question, what is technology giving me, and what is technology taking from me? What is it giving me, and what is it taking from me? And is it worth it? Is that in balance? Let me give you an example of how technology gives and takes away. Did you know that in cultures where they became literate, where for the first time they began to read and write, in those cultures, memory was diminished? Did you know that? So they lost their ability to remember. Why? Well, because they can now record whenever things happen. They could catalog what they recorded, like put it in a library or something like that, and they no longer had to remember it. But if you go to cultures today, and there still are some, where the people are illiterate, instead of being not as smart, those people actually have a more developed memory because they have to remember things. And that makes sense to me because the minute I got this thing, let me tell you something. I still remember the phone number of the house that I grew up in. I still remember our neighbors across the street's phone number. I still remember the phone number of my best friend growing up. I still remember Kim's phone number from when we dated. It's still the same. It hasn't changed. So I still remember her parents' phone number. I remember she had a friend named Cherie, and I'll never forget her phone number because it was 625-LOVE. Yes. So we used to pick on Cherie about that all the time. 625-LOVE. Boy, isn't that a great number? Don't call that today. You never know what you're going to get. Okay? So I remember remembering phone numbers, but today I can't tell you my oldest son's phone number. I don't remember it. It's in here. It's in my digital brain. I don't remember hardly anybody's phone number anymore. I remember those old phone numbers, but I'm no longer required to remember that. So the minute I got this phone, I gained like a substitute memory, but I lost my own real memory, or lost portions of it. So it gives you something, but it takes something away. And it's the same with social media. No matter what you sign up for, no matter what you register for, no matter what new technology you take on, you might be gaining something. Young people, you might be gaining a voice with people who you've never met before, but you might be losing your privacy. Or you might be losing, you think you're gaining an identity, but you might actually be losing part of that identity. And you have to ask that spiritually too. Are you gaining a technology that allows you to connect with God, or are you losing an ability to connect with God? Are you gaining a distraction that keeps you from connecting to the Lord? Those are the things that you have to ask yourself as you enter into this technological age, and especially as you enter into social media. Are you gaining something or are you losing something? Ask yourself that question. Secondly, we become what we behold. We become what we behold. I want you to look with me at Psalm 115, verses 1 to 8. It says this. It says, "Not to us, Lord, not to us, but to your name be the glory because of your love and faithfulness. Why did the nations say, 'Where is their God?' Our God is in heaven. He does whatever pleases him. But their idols are silver and gold, made by human hands. They have mouths but cannot speak, eyes but cannot see. They have ears but cannot hear, noses but cannot smell. They have hands but cannot feel, feet but cannot walk, nor can they utter a sound with their throats." So what's he talking about here? He's saying they ask us where our God is, and we say our God is in heaven and he does whatever he pleases. But these other people, have made idols out of silver and gold with their hands, and they can't talk, and they can't guide, and they can't speak, and they can't act. They are worthless. But they are their idols, and people are worshiping worthless things instead of the real and living God. And look at verse 8. It says, "Those who make them will be like them, and so will all who trust in them." Now, how does this relate to technology and social media? Well, I think you can begin to worship social media. I think it can become an idol for you, where you spend all your time and all your energy and all your effort on trying to be some sort of internet star instead of redirecting that time to worship God. And so you're worshiping something that doesn't guide you, that doesn't lead you, that isn't speaking truth to you, and in effect can be really worthless and counterproductive in your life. And it says that those who make that kind of stuff, their business will become like that. They will become shallow and vague and empty and hollow. And they will find that they are sacrificing the best parts of themselves to something that is not really doing anything great for them. I think social media can be a lot like that. I think it can be a good thing, and it can allow you to connect with people in great ways. And I think it can be an idol that takes the best parts of you and doesn't give you anything in return. And I think the scariest part is that you begin to become like it. You become what you behold. And I think there are some of us who are becoming what we behold. We are becoming like social media. We don't have the ability to connect with each other in deep ways anymore, and we don't even know how to do that. Did you know that in South Korea, that they are so concerned about internet addiction that they are seriously considering a curfew on internet service providers? They're considering from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. just shutting the whole thing down because they have so many young people who are addicted to internet games, social media, everything else, that they're not getting any sleep. And so the government is considering shutting it down on their own. I remember the good old days whenever TV had a curfew. That's how old I am. Do y'all remember that? Anybody? I remember you used to have rabbit ear antennas, and you got about 12 channels, maybe. And I remember my brother forcing me, at threat of physical violence, to hold the rabbit ears in a certain way so that he could watch the TV show The Incredible Hulk. I remember that. And if I moved and the reception got bad, he'd be like, "Hold still, punk." I remember that. But I remember also that at 12 a.m., if you were watching TV, sometimes it was earlier than that, at a certain time at night, some weird circle picture would come on the TV and it would go, boop. Y'all remember that? And that was the end of the TV for the night. Didn't matter what channel you wanted to switch to, it was just done. I just blew some kids' minds. They're like, what? We didn't always have 3,000 million channels. Yeah, they cut it off. Those days are over. They don't cut it off anymore. It's never ending. It's endless. Your access to it is undeniable now. And so what I would encourage you to do is, if you are concerned about becoming what you behold, then put a limit on yourself. Impose your own curfew on what you're doing. Say, look, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, I'm not going to check it anymore. I'm going to put it up, and I'm not going to deal with that anymore, because it is so vast and unlimited that if we don't impose our own limits, we will become idol worshipers. And it will start to overtake everything that we're doing, and every available moment will become social media moments. And I'm having to learn that myself. I'm having to self-impose some curfews or some limitations. And I think it's definitely important that we do that with our children. Thirdly, relationships require real. Relationships require real. You can have a relationship through social media, but I'm not sure you can have a deep one. I'm not sure that you can have a real one. Psychologist Shelley Bonino said this. She said, displays of emotional weakness, insecurity, or conflicts generally tend to be concealed or minimized on social networking sites. It is often difficult, if not impossible, on social media to reveal the qualities that define deep, intimate relationships. Do you hear that? It's nearly impossible to have a deep, intimate relationship on social media. I saw a talk by a young man who was worried that he was becoming too controlled by the internet, and so he decided to disconnect completely, altogether. He got rid of his phone, no more texting, no more internet, no more social media, and he said the first month, it was like he was literally having withdrawals from a drug. It was so weird. He was like really withdrawing. And then eventually, he said, it started to open his eyes, and every social interaction that he had became vibrant, much more real. He would have coffee with friends, and he would find that his attention was focused completely upon them and not on all the distractions around him. He wasn't looking at his phone every time he heard a noise or a vibration. He was focused on the people around him. In other words, he became more real. And I think we can become more real by disconnecting a little bit. And I think relationships require real. That's why God made them that way. Matthew 18:15. It's kind of a different kind of verse to illustrate this point, but I think it's important. It says, if your brother or sister sins, go and point out their fault just between the two of you. If they listen to you, you have won them over. I think this verse tells us in a very small way that God created us for relationships, and that relationships have conflict. That's natural. That's normal. Relationships have conflict, and if you have conflict in a relationship, you are to solve it in real ways. You're to get in front of each other and talk to each other and work it out. Amen. And if you do that, you've won somebody over. That's the natural order of things. That's the way God made us. He didn't make us to where if we had a conflict, we got on our social media and said, I can't believe so-and-so didn't invite me to the movies tonight. I'm so mad. And then, 15 replies later, ooh, girl, I can't believe that happened, but that's how she is, That's not what God wants from you. God wants you to go to that person directly and deal with that person directly and say, hey, listen, what you did the other day, it really bothered me. Can we talk this out? That doesn't happen over a text. Drives me crazy whenever people try to solve problems with me over text, or whenever somebody sends me an email or something telling me that they're upset over something that I said or did. Don't do that. Come talk to me directly. I'm not going to bite you. I'm pretty easy to get along with. We can talk it through. God didn't create us for that kind of interaction. He created us for the interaction that's face-to-face, where we deal with each other like real people. Because we are real people. Relationships require real time, real conversations, real interactions. I want you to look at Matthew 11, 28 to 30. It talks about the kind of relationship that we're supposed to have with the Lord. It talks about what He brings to us. And it's a beautiful passage. And I want you to think, could this kind of depth of relationship happen over social media? He says, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light." I also put it there in the Message, which is a paraphrase of the same passage, and it says this: "Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly." And that's not the kind of thing that happens on social media. That's the kind of thing that happens through extended time and devotion. That's the kind of thing that God teaches you whenever you put down the device and you create enough margin in your life to spend deep, real time with Him. Relationships require real. And I think part of the reason why so many of us feel empty in this age is because we no longer carve out time for real relationships. We instead are too distracted. And because we're too distracted, we feel too empty, and we don't get what we need out of life. Now, I want to share with you 3 quick ways that you can manage your image, because if social media is an extension or amplification of your image online, what's the best way to manage that image? And I think parents, this should help many of you in dealing with your kids on social media. I want to encourage you to really tune into this. The first way to manage your image is to guard your heart with a clean mouth and a clear focus. Guard your heart with a clean mouth and a clear focus. Look at Proverbs 4:23 to 25. It says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." It can also be translated, "For it is the wellspring of life." It's the deepest, most important part of who you are. I would say it's your personality. It's where everything else kind of flows. And so guard it, it says. Guard your heart, for everything you do flows from that. Keep your mouth free of perversity. Keep corrupt talk from your lips. Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. So it says, guard your heart, and the way to do that is to keep your mouth clean. So if you are on social media and it's an extension of who you are, keep it clean. Don't be perverse. Don't talk about junk. If you're going to have social media, make sure that it's clean. Make sure that it flows from a heart that is guarded and that it stays clean. And make sure that it's done with a clear focus. The idea there, it's like a hiking term. It's like if you're going on a hike, you want to stay on the trail. We went on a hike one time. I'll never forget this. It was the first time Trent and I ever went hiking on this mountain that we go to in Colorado. Trent was 8 years old, and we were hiking up this mountain with two guys. We weren't hiking with a guide. We were hiking with two dudes who told us they knew where they were going. Right? So we get up to the top of the mountain. It was absolutely grueling. We get up to the top of this huge mountain, and then on the way back down, a storm hits. And this storm hits right when we got back into the trees. It was a huge storm. There was hail. There was huge high winds. We found out later that there was a tornado down in the valley, and here we are on the side of this mountain while a tornado is hitting. I was hovering over Trent, like laying over him so that the hail wouldn't hurt him too badly. It was miserable. We were soaking wet, and then these guys got us lost. All right, we got off the trail. So we were totally doomed. You know, we had no idea if we were ever going to get off of this mountain. They had organized, from what Kim told us later, they had like organized a search party to come and try and find us. It was a bad deal. We finally made it down the mountain really late, and we were absolutely exhausted. The point is, stay on the trail. The trail exists for your safety. The trail is exhibiting of a person who has a clear focus. And so you stay on the trail. What does that mean from a social media standpoint? It means that you don't get lost in the woods, in the weeds of a bunch of pointless, meaningless, fruitless conversations. Don't get caught up. You know, it's impossible to get on social media without getting caught up in politics. And what it's saying there, and I made this mistake before, you know, you see something on there and your sensibilities are offended and you're like, I got to correct that. Resist the urge, folks. Trust me, from experience. I got to correct that. And so you write in, chiming in, thinking that you're going to change somebody's mind. You never do. It always ends up ugly. People call you an idiot and everything else in the book. And you have left that conversation frustrated, angry, and maybe even losing a friend. Now, does that really sound like a good thing to do? No. Stay on the path. Have a clear focus whenever you get on the internet. Keep your mouth clean and stay on a clear path. All right. Guard your heart with a clean mouth and a clear focus. Secondly, control yourself. Control yourself instead of social media controlling you. Psalm 39:1 says, I said, I will watch my ways and keep my tongue from sin. I will put a muzzle on my mouth while in the presence of the wicked. This is very important. Parents, this may be the most important thing that you hear. Students, this may be the most important thing that you hear today. Control yourself. The psalmist here is telling you how. He's saying, look, I control myself by watching the way I keep my tongue. And I put a muzzle on my mouth. You know what a muzzle is? If you have a dog that bites, you know, you put a muzzle on their snout and it keeps their mouth closed, keeps them from being able to bite somebody else. This is very important. I've had a lot of parents who say, when is it right for my kid to get a phone? When is it right for my kid to get social media? And I would say if your kid doesn't know how to muzzle themselves around you, then they don't need a phone. If they can't muzzle their mouth with you, they're certainly not going to be able to muzzle their mouth on the internet. When they show enough maturity to be able to keep it muzzled, then maybe they're mature enough to have a phone. Although the phone has a tendency to like loosen the muzzle. Because now they're not just talking to you, they're talking to peers. And let me just tell you this, parents. At this stage in their lives, your kids, you are their muzzle. You're their muzzle. When they don't have a muzzle for themselves, you become that. And that job stinks, doesn't it? It's hard. But that's what you're there for. You're there to make sure that what comes out of their mouth is the right thing. And if they can't control that themselves, then you become their controlling factor. And you control it for them. You help them. Giving them the freedom to be unmuzzled is not helping them. It's hurting them. It's teaching them to be unmuzzled. It's teaching them to be reckless with their mouth. It's teaching them to be uncontrolled. And that's not what you're there for. You're not there to teach your kids to be uncontrolled. You're there to teach them what self-control looks like. So control yourself. Thirdly, choose your friends wisely. Choose your friends wisely. One of the downsides of social media is that a lot of people pretend to be friends who are not your friends. Proverbs 12:26 says, "The righteous choose their friends carefully, but the way of the wicked leads them astray." The righteous choose their friends carefully, but the way of the wicked leads them astray. That means a righteous person is the one who's on the right trail and one who is close to God and one who is wise. And if they're wise, they're cautious with friendship. Proverbs 13:20, walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. So walk with the wise and you'll become wise, but a companion of fools suffers harm. Here's a little way of helping you regulate who should be your friend and who should be your teenager's friends or your child's friend. First of all, age. Age. Make sure that they have age-appropriate friends. If they have social media, make sure that they have age-appropriate friends. I don't believe it's appropriate for a 50-year-old man to be friends with a 14-year-old girl on social media. That's not appropriate, unless the 50-year-old man is like my brother, you know, even though there's some weird uncles out there too, so be careful, right? But make sure that they have age-appropriate friends. Make sure that they're people who you would trust. Make sure that you know who their friends are on social media. And if they have some older guy on there that you don't know, you need to have the setting controls and you need to be able to get rid of that person. It would be inappropriate, completely inappropriate for my daughter to have a 50-year-old male friend who had unlimited time with her. In real life, that would be crazy. And yet some of them are doing that on social media. I went to Israel several years ago with a big group of people, and one of the leaders there, her name was Kim Biddle. Kim runs a ministry for people who have become sex slaves all throughout the world. She is based in Los Angeles, and she works with local police and all kinds of people to help keep girls, in particular, off the streets. And I asked her, how do they end up there? And she said, 9 times out of 10, it's through the internet. An older man befriends them on the internet. He starts to chat with them, and he starts to find out that they don't have a great relationship with their parents. He starts to fill the void by talking to them, and pretty soon he convinces them that they need to leave home and come meet him somewhere. He meets them somewhere, and they are his. He owns them at that point. Be careful about the age of the people that your kids are talking to on the internet. Secondly, attitude. Does this person have a godly attitude? How can you tell? It's not hard. You just look at the way they're talking. I don't want my Facebook feed cluttered up with the F-bombs. And if you're talking that way, you're not going to be my quote-unquote friend very long. And it needs to be the same way with your kids. Watch the attitude of the people who are on there, because we get some real internet warriors who get on there and think they're bad to the bone, you know, behind a keyboard. And they'll say all kinds of things behind a keyboard that they would never say to your face. That's not the kind of people you want to be friends with on social media. Thirdly, accessibility. I'm going to say this as nicely as I can, but some people are needy and they need to be out of your life. There are some people whose needs go beyond your ability to help them. And so they may want to be on your social media and they're just like an endless vortex of need. And you can't help them, and it doesn't always help them for you to be friends with them. It certainly doesn't help your kids. If somebody is like just a vacuum of need and they're wanting your kids to be the solution for them, they don't need to be their friend. We one time decided we wanted to get a dog, and we were kind of looking into all kinds of dogs, and we found out there was a rescue that had a Great Pyrenees. It's a beautiful dog, a big white dog. It's about that tall, you know. Huge, but beautiful. And so we decided to take this dog in for a little bit because the adoption agency was like, the dog can come live with you for a little bit and we'll see how it goes. Well, we loved the dog, and the dog needed someone, and we thought we were the ones that the dog needed. We were not the ones that the dog needed. We could not care for the dog the way it needed to be cared for. The dog just ate our lunch and our dinner and our breakfast. It was just too big for us, too much for us to handle. And there are friends on the internet who are too much for you to handle and too much for your kids to handle. And so at those points, you need to make that determination, because you're not doing them any good by reaching out to people who you can't really help. So you got to make sure, especially with your kids, that they're not getting into a situation where they're expected to be the solution to someone's great need. The only way for you to do that is to be plugged in, to be tuned in to what they're doing. Sure that you have all the right settings. Make sure that you're able to, let's not use the word spy, let's use the word investigate. Let's make sure that you can investigate everything that's on their phone. Make sure that you have free access to it. Make sure that if they have a phone, they are not allowed to say you can't look at it. If they say you can't look at it, you need to immediately go to AT&T, Verizon, whoever it is, and have it cut off. You have the right to be the muzzle because you're paying for it. It's your property. And they should have open access to you, and if they have a problem with that, they're hiding something, and you need to get to the bottom of it. There is no privacy in my house. There shouldn't be any privacy in your house either. So make sure that you are on top of that. Don't be worried about your kid being mad at you. My kids get mad at me all the time. They love me. I love them. See, Jillian's mad at me right now. I just looked down there and she was going. Make sure that you're on top of that stuff and that you know what's going on. We have this great little app called Life 360. We can tell everywhere the kids are going. I can tell how fast they're going in their car. It's awesome, you know. Kim cracks me up because, you know, we'll be somewhere at night and she'll go, oh, look, Trent's at Wings and More in College Station, you know, and she just knows right where they are. I love that. Make sure you know those things, all right? That's very, very important. Let's do this. Let's bow and close our eyes together and just have a little time of reflection. I want you to think about how awesome the God that we serve is, that His Word directs us on day-to-day living, even in the internet age. It tells us the truth, even for something as relevant as this. We have an awesome God. His Word is living and active and sharper than any two-edged sword, and I pray that it would penetrate our hearts, that it would show us deep wisdom and how we are to live and how our children are to live. And it would instruct us and guide us. And we know that it does. And so I am so thankful today for the Word of God and for a God that we serve who is timely and relevant and active. Spend a few minutes just thanking Him for that. God, we thank you for your great love for us. And we thank you, Lord, that you have given us such rich wisdom and guidance so that we can follow you faithfully. I pray, Lord, that you would guide us in this area in particular. It is a hazard for me and for many adults in this room. It can become an idol for us that we sacrifice major parts of our time and our energy and even our faith. We sacrifice it to the idol of technology. So I pray, Lord, that you would guide us in that, and may we surrender that to you and allow you to set up new ways of thinking, new guidelines for us that are healthy and good and lead to abundant life. I pray for our kids, for our students who are bombarded with technology nonstop and who oftentimes feel pressured to be a part of the technological wave, and who can feel like they're not cool enough or not smart enough if they don't have access to these things. I just pray, God, that you would fill them up and allow them to be full in you and not in the latest trends of our culture. I pray, God, that they would feel connected to you in a deep way and learn to trust you. God, thank you for your great love for us, and thank you for the wisdom that you provide us. May we look to you constantly to guide us. We pray it all in Jesus' name. Amen.